But December 10th and December 11th, Full Draw Film Tour in Albany, Oregon.
I'm going to be there on Friday.
Okay.
That's the one you should go to.
Maybe I should go Friday then. We can hug or wrestle. I haven't wrestled you yet. So.
Yeah, you're little. I don't want to be that close to you, man. I mean, no offense,
you
but
want a big old bear hug from me. I know you do.
I saw you and Anthony wrestle. I don't want any part of that.
He cheated. More wolves than elk. It was brutal. Took the whole season.
He's a big dude, man. He is solid as a rock.
He's a
mountain.
Yeah.
He's only 5'10", but the width on the man.
It's as big as a barrel.
Yeah.
Like a 50-gallon drum.
It's a lot harder to explain from A to Z what BHA is involved in, why it matters, why the sale or the transfer of ownership from federal to state is a bad idea, how state has had a track record of selling your lands and then you losing all your access, that public land is yours, you have a right to it when it's federally owned, and when it moves to state, you lose that right. Those things are not what they're telling people. Because what I'm hearing from a lot of those groups is, don't join BHA. They're not really for the sportsmen. They say they are, but that's a lie. BHA is really there to take away your hunting rights.
Yeah. So what I say to that is, prove it.
That takes serious manness, or tough womanness too. I mean,
right.
The way we can help with this is to join BHA and participate.
I fell down once, had the horns all back behind me and twisted, and the more I rolled, the worse it got.
The cutoff sleeve, is that just...
That's a trademark.
That's a trademark?
He has 3 shirts with sleeves.
Your black shirt blends so well. I want to make sure folks are aware of the fact that is a true cutoff sleeve.
You're going to get every redneck from California wanting to order that.
Sun's out, guns out.
So our gritty tip is, wear that cutoff sleeve shirt. Work that cutoff sleeve shirt. Make it work for you. And as you feel that manliness, you'll be calling in twice the bulls.
I'm probably going to bring that Sitka or that Swazi and just suck it up and look like an axe murderer on the side of the mountain, because the thing is even though you look like you're wearing a dress and you're getting ready to serve, Swiss Miss Mocha or whatever, it does keep your ass dry, right?
I wanted to ask you a lot of questions about, because you were conspicuously absent when we talked about who the best caller was in that conversation with Ty.
Well, depends.
And who was the ice in the veins killer? You just weren't mentioned.
No, because I'm behind the camera.
I feel you, brother. I feel you.
You know what you look like is like the man from Snowy River. It's like a duster, but with rain gear, right?
We're here with Josh Keller, the infamous Josh Keller, and Ty Stubblefield.
Why am I famous in a bad way?
Infamous.
That's what that means, Larry.
Trent, I will say, is Iceman.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's like that. I pull my bow back and
it's dead.
No, that's the reason I'm pulling my bow back, is to kill that bull.
Yeah.
And it's dead every time.
Yeah.
One arrow.
That's
Ty,
pretty sweet.
Ty, his nickname is 3 Arrows. No, true story. It doesn't matter. He gets
Naked Man 3 Arrows?
Yeah, exactly. But he gets 3 arrows off before I can even knock a second arrow. It's just bonk, bonk, bonk. I smoked 2 of the times. One was in the tree.
That one in the tree is awesome.
We are Full Draw Film Tour,
And we are listening to
The Gritty Bowmen!
Yeah!
Hello, alright, you're listening to the Gritty Bowmen, home of gritty bow hunting films, interviews, tall tales, and a wee bit of manly boasting.
I'm South Cox, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowmen.
Hey, this is Corey Jacobson, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowmen.
We bone and raised outdoors, and you've been listening to the Gritty Bowmen.
There you go.
I'm Casey.
And I'm Jordan.
And you're watching
The Gritty Bowmen.
If you like the show, please go to our website at grittybowmen.com and subscribe to this podcast and tell your mates and pals about us. Do us a favour and please take a moment to leave us a rating or a review on iTunes or on our YouTube channel. Send your questions and podcast ideas to grittybowmen@gmail.com. If you're listening to this on iTunes, you can see the video version of this podcast on our website at www.grittybowmen.com.
You don't need to.
No.
You're a rock star. You got this.
I love you too, Brian.
All right, folks. Welcome to the Gritty Bowmen podcast. So we are back here with Ty Stubblefield today of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers and Born and Raised Outdoors. And you and I talked about this, Ty, that we were going to meet regularly and kind of give people an idea of BHA and their activities and conservation, discuss conservation topics. But I blame you. You can blame me, but we fell off the wagon. And
I blame hunting season. That's all I got.
Speaking of which, before we have some talk, we're going to talk a little bit about BHA. Before we get into that, though, dude, tell me about your season. What happened?
Well, so since we're blaming hunting season, like I started in Idaho for bow season, was a phenomenal time. I was with Corey Miller and the gang, Triple X Archery, yep, at a Rainier. And phenomenal time, off the hook. Actually, I was supposed to say there's more wolves than elk. It was brutal, took the whole season.
The hunting was awful.
Yeah, it was
didn't
horrible.
See a thing.
Yeah.
Except y'all tagged out.
Except for we all tagged out. It took the last hour of the last day to get the last tag filled, but it was all, get your money's worth, right?
Yes.
I rolled out of that into Oregon in mid-October, had an eagle cap muzzleloader tag. For those of you who don't know, I'm moving to Missoula, Montana from Roseburg, Oregon. And so I burned all my points on this tag, figured I'd be over there already.
And you're moving you're moving there to support BHA, to work for BHA.
Yeah, our main office is in Missoula.
Yep.
And so I'm moving there to be, in that core group and work with everybody in the office on a one-on-one basis. It's totally, adds to the energy level and working side by side. Yeah, and the efficiency.
So you burned all your points before you left the state, and you got a muzzy tag.
Yeah, for the caps.
And
it was tough. I mean, it was hard. It's hard to say that with a straight face because I was fortunate enough to shoot my bull at 12:30 on opening day.
Rough.
But so real quick, kind of the highlight of the story. I was supposed to go in, had this all lined out, months out, that I had a buddy that lives over there out of La Grande, and we were going to be able to. He's got horses and mules and wall tents and all that cool stuff. Never done that before, so he was going to take us in and we were going to do the whole wall tent, steaks, drink beer, that whole experience that, I've never get to do. I'm like, yes.
Right. You're always working your butt off with a backpack.
Yeah.
And living on freeze-dried food.
Right. Yeah. Freeze-dried stuff.
This was going to be one of those kind of hunts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, and then a friend of his drew a Jarbridge Nevada elk tag. Like he was the first runner up to
wow.
And plans changed. And so I got to actually ride a horse in on Friday, the day before season, which was awesome. Mm-hmm. And he went in with me, and he had deer hunted in there and pointed out some drainages, pointed out where he'd seen elk during deer season, which was a huge help. I mean, huge. But he had to leave at noon, 11:30. I think he hunted with me opening day until about 11:30. It was kind of slow, saw one small bull right off the bat in the morning, and then we just kept hunting this ridge and out this drainage. And we ate lunch and said our goodbyes, and he went back to camp, get the horses, get his gear, and then he was going to head out. I continued on out the ridge and out the drainage, and an hour later I called in a bull and shot it with my muzzleloader. and kind of a two-part to the story, two-part lesson to the story. But like this is 12:30. He's not even probably just barely back to camp, and the horses are right there. You know, I'm like 2 miles from the horses, and I can't get a hold of him. I have no way to call him, text him, radio him. So that was kind of painful knowing that those horses were leaving without meat on their backs.
Wow.
And that was mid-October, October 17th or whatever. And I turned 40 October 30th, yeah. And so I'm like, you know what? I got to prove to myself that I'm as legit as all these solo hunters out there. You know, you hear these guys that's all they do is solo hunt.
Right.
And I got to tell you, man, that's a new kind of toughness. I mean, it's legit. It's some of the toughest, just not only physically, but mentally. Like,
how far?
So the bull was about 5.5 miles in. And I mean, that's not bad. That's not brutal. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot worse out there, but you know, I 3-tripped it. So I took one load to camp at night. It took me the whole afternoon to break him down, get him hung up.
So 30 miles? Total?
Yeah, I figured like 25 packing him out.
That's with heavy loads. That's heavy loads. Over how many days?
Light load. 2 days.
Yeah, dude, that's, you know, that takes serious manness. Or, I mean, or tough womanness, too. I mean.
Right.
Right. It just takes serious toughness. I'm working on my whole, you know.
Politically correct thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, if yeah. So I started my first trip back to camp. Of course, this is the first time I've ever been here in this country, and the caps are brutal. I mean, they're rocky, bluffy, steep, shaly. And I went first trip back to camp in the dark, and it took me like 2.5 hours, and I was really only like an hour from camp.
And you're alone?
I was solo, yeah. And so I fell down once, had the horns all back behind me and twisted, and the more I rolled, the worse it got, and I was cussing, and yeah. So, yeah, I got back to camp the first night, and that's the hardest part. Like, you've shot this beautiful animal, you know, you've achieved this awesome goal, and you're sitting there celebrating by yourself, you know? And it's like, I don't mind carrying heavy loads. I don't mind walking in the dark. I don't mind a lot of things, but that sucks sitting there by yourself, you know?
See, I've done very little of that, but I do believe that filming it makes it a lot easier because you're sitting there with your little camera and you're talking to the camera like you're talking to a buddy. It sort of like reminds me of like Castaway when he's talking to Wilson, the volleyball. That's me, dude. You give me a camera, I can just blah, blah, blah. Like he's my buddy. It makes it psychologically feel way different.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, try it, dude. I mean, so what's your take on solo hunting now? I mean, are you going to do it again or is it just not your thing? Because I'll tell you, it's not my thing. It's not my thing. Like, no. I want to sit there and make fun of somebody in camp with me. And
oh, yeah. There's got to be somebody to make fun of throughout the, you know, I mean, exactly.
I got to like test my wits against them. You know, there's got to be some pranks. There's got to be some genuine annoyances where I chew them out over something. There's got to be a little bit of all of that or it's far less rewarding for me.
It's not as much fun.
Anthony solo hunted. He's solo hunted a lot of times. He did it this year. He loved it. Loved every minute of it. But
I don't mind like I'll solo hunt blacktails in the late season. Like I'll go out and camp and solo and do my own thing. But when I come back to camp, you know, it's nice to have somebody to BS with. You know, sit there and drink whiskey and
that night
a little hot toddy and talk about how much we suck as blacktail hunters and
It's
just, you know, the big ones that got away.
It's just not the same when you get home, is it? Like you're home and now you're sitting around talking about it. Is it not as rewarding?
No,
it's
not.
Yeah.
But like I said, this was just days before I'm turning 40, and I'm like, I got to prove to myself that I'm tough. I'm not going down without a fight,
Yeah.
So I did it. It was 25 miles. It wasn't a horrible trip. I mean, it was pretty much mostly downhill with the heavy load. There was 15 switchbacks between the trailhead and camp.
Wow.
So there was a lot of climb going back in, but
dude, I've been to the Eagle Caps. If you've never been there, it's unreal. It's it's intense wilderness right there.
It's hard to believe it was Oregon. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So second part to the lesson of the story. So I don't have a ton of experience muzzleloader hunting. I've killed blacktail and elk. This was my second elk. And so I got this bull to bugle in his bed and moved up on him. He bugled again. So went uphill, got the wind right, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden he comes just running out and pops out. And I had like seconds to decide. And he was kind of running across this opening. So I cow call. And he turns and just quarters to me. And it's like 140 yards, give or take, this steep downhill. So I'm like, he's a branch bull. I'm shooting him. I'm by myself, and throw up. I torture off, and he runs off. And I'm like, what the heck? And of course, I'm trying to reload and trying to get the ball in, get the bullet in, powder and cap and all that stuff. And he runs out and disappears. And then I see some cows come off the bench that he was on and drop down and just stop. And I was watching them and reloading, and then I'm waiting for him to come out. And all of a sudden, they just take off. And they take off running. And my initial reaction was, he went down. He's dead. And they left because of the, commotion. So I go down there. Of course, I'm colorblind, which is awesome. And I'm solo. So I got no backup.
And you're ginger.
And this is
you just got screwed from birth.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm the underdog all the time. So I look for this bull. Now we're in the rocks. You can't see tracks. It's hard to differentiate, a track from a kicked over rock or whatever.
Yeah.
And there was like two trails that left off this little bench. One was the trail that the cows left on, and the other one went out the other end of it. So I'm like, oh, he went out the other end. I go, and there's no tracks, no fresh tracks, nothing. I do circles. I'm looking. I can't find anything. And I'm like, I missed that bull. And I was like bumming. I was kicking myself. I'm like, that was a nice bull. I don't even know. It was probably a 400-inch bull, and I missed, And so all these things going through my head, and so I follow the cows, and I start following the cows out about 200 yards. And I don't know. I was praying. I was asking God. I'm like, man, I really could use some help right now because I'm at a loss. I don't know if I missed. I don't know what's happened, but this bull's not just laying there like I thought he was. And it just kind of hit me. Like I went like 50 more yards, and it was just like, I didn't miss. There's no way. There's just no way I missed because I did my homework. I shot my gun. I know how it's just like when you shoot your bow. Mm-hmm. When you make a good shot, you know where your arrow goes. It was the same thing. And I'm just like, didn't miss it. There's no way. He's dead up there. So I hiked all the way back up and just started following. There were some trails that went uphill off the bench up through some shale chutes. Mm-hmm. And long story short, he had gone up the very steepest trail and died on his feet and then slid down the shale slide and then wrapped around a tree and was completely tangled around that tree and stuck up underneath all the branches. And that's where I found him. Almost walked away from that bull because I thought I'd missed, couldn't find any blood, and kind of a lesson, that never give up for one.
Yeah.
Until you've just exhausted all, but trust your intuition, trust your experience, and be confident in what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Like, how many times it's a shame to shoot an animal and then not find it. I think often when you're, especially early in your hunting career, it's easy to do that. But anymore. So I'll just keep looking and looking and looking. Too many times I've found the animal. You just can't quit. You just got to keep looking.
Yep.
That's awesome. That's a big. How big of the bull was this compared to other bulls you shot?
He was 200. Not that I'm all about measurement, but he was a really giant 5-point, and he had like that big a 3-inch sixth on one side.
Nice.
And he scored like 283. It's a pretty big, heavy, nice bull.
That's cool. Eel caps, you know, it's a pretty rugged wilderness. You know, I don't think that the elk, particularly in a lot of those places, get huge. They got a tough winter ahead of them and stuff each year. But I don't really know. I could be totally making that up.
Sound like you're full of it a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think they live there all winter.
No. No, I think they do in 6 feet of snow.
No, I don't have that much experience in there, but from what guys that I've talked to.
Why did you go there?
Huh?
Why did you go there? Instead of somewhere else, just because you wanted to prove your manliness?
A man, I wanted to prove my manliness. No, it was, I like muzzleloader hunting.
Yeah.
If I'm not going to bow hunt, I like to muzzleloader hunt. And it was a new hunt. It was like, I figured it was in October. I figured you'd be able to call them.
Yeah.
And I figured I'd be in Missoula already and closer to the eagle caps than I am now in Roseburg. So that's kind of the premise of why I did that.
Well, cool, man. Next time you come on, we need to get the Idaho story and how you shot your bull with your bow. I heard you shot it in the head. Just kidding. Did you?
No.
Okay, I was just checking.
I got a really good blacktail story too. I'll have to tell that one next time.
Okay. All right.
I broke a 3-year dry streak, so it's pretty awesome.
That is awesome. I saw the pictures. He's gorgeous. In fact, so I went to the BHA function here in Oregon, in Portland, at the Lucky Labrador brewery, and here in Portland, Oregon, and you hosted an event there, and it was pretty cool. We had a little turnout, and we hung out, but I didn't really know about it until the last minute. So, and then as I got to meet some new people there, it was pretty neat because I got to see some members of BHA and connect with other hunters that are really into conservation and into hunting in this local community. And so I wanted to get together, continue this, but find out what other events you have going on, and are we going to do more of those here in Portland and in other local communities, and what's the objective of those, and you know, what's going on?
So we do have another one coming up in Oregon in Bend. Mm-hmm. Those details are being finalized right now. I'm not sure what the date is. Actually, I'll have to get the date. We're actually still working on finalizing details on that one, but they're basically just, you know, we call them bring a hunting buddy happy hour, backcountry at the brewery. Basically, it's just a chance to get together, update members on what BHA is working on, and engage new folks. You know, encourage current members to bring their hunting buddies and sign them up as new members. You know, BHA is a nonprofit conservation group, and we're membership driven. I mean, you know, our members not only represent us or we represent them, but, you know, they give us the power to go to our state representatives and say, hey, you know, we have X amount of members in this state, and this is how they feel about this sportsman's, you know, issue.
Yep.
And, you know, where there's numbers, there's power.
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to more of these and participating in more of these events and getting more hunters together and maybe doing some activities together. It was pretty cool. I was happy to see it happen. Tell those that are listening for the first time, maybe, or who don't really know, what is Backcountry Hunters and Anglers about? What's the objectives of the organization?
BHA for short. We are a backcountry conservation group. I mean, in a nutshell, our primary focus is fighting to keep public lands public, and to keep access open for hunters and anglers. And so,
from the outside, I mean, is there really a need for an organization like that? I mean,
so you and I were talking about this earlier, that it doesn't matter how many habitat projects you have, how much, what kind of shape the habitat's in. It doesn't matter how many deer and elk are on the landscape, or pheasants or ducks or whatever. If they're on private land, if they're on lands that we can't access as hunters and fishermen, then it really doesn't matter. If you look at where the majority of the hunting population actually recreates, it's about 95% public lands, at least on the west side. Some of the eastern states, Midwest states, a lot of what they do is private land based. Mm-hmm. But even in those states, there are big chunks of public ground that folks hunt and fish on, and that's what we fight to protect. We fight to keep that in federal ownership. And you're going to ask, well, why is that even necessary? And the reason that's necessary is because a lot of our state representatives right now are pushing to turn federal lands over to state ownership. And I've actually had several conversations about this just this week in reference to the Elliott State Forest. So if you're not familiar with the Elliott State Forest, the Elliott is just out of Reedsport, very near Deans Creek, Elkview area.
That's Oregon, by the way.
Oregon, yes,
Oregon
correct.
coast.
Yeah, I forget we're nationwide. We're bad. So Elliott State Forest, Oregon coast. It is now, there was over 10,000 acres to begin with, and
this land was in federal control. It was given to Oregon State, and the purpose of Oregon State, the reason that they got the land from the federal government, was so that they could manage it, basically log it to pay for schooling.
Correct.
State schooling, correct. Fund state schools.
Correct. So the monies raised through logging were to help fund our county schools.
And this is a renewable resource. Chop down the trees, grow new ones. Chop down the trees, grow new ones. Chop down the trees, grow new ones. This is a nice renewable resource for Oregon. Makes sense in a logging state to do this kind of activity and then fund the schools, pay for the schools. Sounds good on paper, but there's a problem.
Yeah. Every time the state put up a logging sale, they would come up against litigation from environmental groups to stop the sale. So in a sense, the environmental groups would tie the hands of the state and they could not log it. To the point now where it's over a $1 million a year deficit.
So now they can't log it because they can't get past the litigation from groups like PETA.
No, it's more
humane,
like, and I'm not even sure.
Endangered species.
Spotted
owl.
I hate to throw any names out because I'm not 100% positive who's filed the litigation, but it's groups like Oregon Wild, groups.
Thousand Friends of Oregon, or
groups like that. And so I don't, like I said.
So we're throwing all these names out, and we don't know if any of them are the culprits.
I don't know who filed the lawsuit.
Okay, but basically,
but it's groups like those. They're green groups. They're pause in the conversation because here's a pet peeve of mine. I've been involved in conservation and hunting in Oregon for about 17 years now.
Yep.
And somewhere along the lines, hunting groups, true conservation groups, have been stolen of the title of conservation groups. These groups have taken our title from us, like PETA, like Oregon Wild, these target specific green groups, and I call them extreme environmental groups, which is their true title. They've taken over the name of conservation groups
in the public eye.
Yeah, self.
They basically portray themselves as true conservationists and portray hunters as people stealing or killing, destroying the landscape and not giving back.
Yeah, we're just hunters.
Yeah.
But most of us know the facts, and the facts are that we're the ones that fund conservation. We're the ones that are more passionate about the outcome of conservation than,
in fact,
any of the environmental groups.
The Walter Pittman Act, that's what it's called, right? Walter Pittman Act.
Well, Pittman-Roberts funds.
Pittman-Roberts. Okay.
Fund. Yeah.
Say it again.
Pittman-Roberts funds.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a tax.
Right. Basically on all firearms, hunting. It's firearms or ammunition,
all
right?
of it. It's it even boils down to like lures and fishing poles, bows.
So the sale of basically hunting and fishing gear gets taxed, and that tax goes toward conservation. It was something that Theodore Roosevelt set up back. Was it that far old?
If not older.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this was designed basically as part of a major part of funding conservation in this country.
Correct.
Which is ironic. They're not taxing ATVs or bicyclists or kayakers, or you know what I mean. It's hunting, and so the money that goes into this, which is billions of dollars that we get each year, that goes back into conservation, comes from taxing hunting activities. That's how I understand it. I could have butchered it a little bit, but that's at a high level. That's kind of how it goes.
That's what it is, correct.
Okay.
And so that's, we're above and beyond, the highest level of funding for conservation in the nation.
If you take any look at it, there's just by a landslide, hunting is what has done the most for species and conservation, habitat improvement, and land. Saving land and species and animals. It's gone through. It's largely funded through. It's mostly funded through hunting.
Between Pittman-Roberts funds and us buying, hunting related, fishing related products, and our license and tag dollars, we fund the lion's share of conservation. There's been organizations come forward like the Audubon Society. And they recognize this, and they want to do their part. So they, like here in Oregon, they actually, which we supported them, they actually brought forth their own tax, and they wanted to tax birdseed. And so that birdseed would help fund, bird conservation, so.
Right.
But, they'll never, it'll be really difficult for them to ever match what we put on the ground in conservation dollars. But I derailed the conversation.
Yes, you did. So let's just say this though, that hunters are conservationists, and hunting is conservation.
Yes.
Okay, go on.
And that totally different than environmental groups. So I just wanted to clarify that. Mm-hmm. So moving on, we were talking about the Elliott State Forest and why, like a big part of BHA is like we really want those lands to stay federal. And the reason we want them to stay federal is when you get into a situation like the Elliott State Forest, now they can't afford to manage it. And so they're
the state of Oregon can't afford to manage it. So they feel like their only option.
Our schools are paying because there's no money coming into the school for logging. And the state's paying because of, the administrative costs. And
they got to, in their budget somewhere, they got to come up with the money to pay for schools and everything else that they need to pay for. And without the sale of the logging from the forest, they're like, well, I guess we might as well sell the forest.
Right.
And that to me isn't the best. That to me is not the solution. It's like
it's permanent. It's permanent. You don't get that back. Once that land is gone, now it's down to, like I said, it was over 10,000 acres. Now it's down to 80-some thousand acres, high 80,000. Now, once that's sold, It's gone. We're not getting that back. There's no returns, no refunds.
So do you mean 100,000 acres?
No. Yeah.
Now we're down to
what did I say?
80,000 left.
Yes.
That's
high 80s.
That still is up for sale.
I said 10, didn't I?
Yeah, your math was wrong, dude. That was redneck right there. So, no offense to rednecks. Okay, so when you're dealing with this property, what bothers me about the sale of the Elliott National Forest is that who's going to buy it when it goes up for sale? Who's the primary buyer so far, and what do you speculate who's gonna buy it?
So
is it not going to be other logging companies?
It'll be sold to. Well, so there's a couple of different options. Like one of the options that I think would be the best, outside of the state keeping it and actually logging it for what its intended purpose, would be a conservation group to purchase it. RMEF, Nature Conservancy, somebody who's going to keep that open to, the public. Now, a lot of the folks, especially local folks who know what the Elliott is, know what its purpose is, they'd like to see that sold to a private timber company. And
it's jobs.
It's jobs, it's economy, and it's logging, and quite honestly, that creates great habitat for deer and elk on the west side.
Yeah, like with all the fire suppression that we have and so forth, it's like if a fire's not going to come through and clear some stuff naturally, you kind of need to log it for that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have an unhealthy forest. You're going to have some serious problems down the line. We've kind of created a disaster. We've talked about this before. But see, what gets me, Ty, is if you're going to sell it to a logging company, why would they buy it if they can't log it because they're going to get sued? But somehow they don't. What's the catch here? How come they don't get sued, but the state gets sued?
They're under different rules, different regulations, and these environmental groups just feel like a lot of it. What it amounts to is that if an environmental group sues the government, be it federal or state, if they sue the government and they win, all of their court fees are paid for by the government. So you and I and our tax dollars, this is like a double-edged knife for me. Because not only do they sue, and if they win, which most of the time they do, then you and I pay for that. So we get to pay to lose. And so that's why they're more forthcoming to sue, a government agency than they are private industry. And private industry is, quite honestly, once it's private, it's private. It's private property. The only thing that an environmental group would have to stand on is if there was an endangered species on there or, something to that effect.
It's bizarre because here we are, we have this renewable resource that's brilliant, it's perfect, it's what we need, and yet we can't use it. And so they force the sale of it to a private company who then just logs it anyway, and they can't stop. And there's part of me there, dude, that just wonders, have these organizations that are anti-hunting not figured that out? And I've listened to like some sort of conspiracy theorist ideas, like, on a recent podcast with Randy Newberg, just I think posted this week or last, on a Q&A podcast on Hunt Talk Radio. I recommend people go and check out Randy all the time because he's talking about, conservation issues and hunting opportunities, and it's just good stuff. And on that, he talked about how so much of our land is so much of hunting. Why did people quit hunting? When they did some studies on this, they found people quit hunting because they lost access. They didn't have any more public land to go hunt, or it got too expensive because they have to now find private property, or so they would have hunted and they would have continued hunting, but they lost access. And that's especially an East Coast thing where so much of the land is just privately owned and it's farmland and agricultural. And so what happens is when hunters lose access, they stop hunting. When they stop hunting, we stop doing conservation, and we stop promoting hunting itself. And so if we want to maintain hunter recruitment and keep people focused on conservation, and you gotta keep land open. You got to keep land available for people to hunt. If you take that away, it won't take long for hunting to go away as well. And I just got to wonder, do some of these organizations, have they put that together? Hey, I can't fight, anti-gun laws. We kind of lose there. We get our butts kicked. When we try to do, try to shut down hunting, we lose there. But if we just sort of wage a war of underground where we just take away access, eventually hunting will go away too. At least on a broad scale. And maybe eventually at a private scale as well. Private land scale. It's just something that crosses my mind that I feel like, is a possibility. And so there's not a lot of organizations that have been paying attention, it seems, to a lot of conservation organizations. I shouldn't say that. I should say this hasn't been a focus of a lot of organizations. That is to keep public land public in the way that it's a BHA focus. Is that a correct statement?
That's pretty correct. I mean, there's...
Because I know the RMEF, they do things to try to get access for hunters to hunt certain places for elk and these different organizations. But their primary focus, I think, is to restore elk herds and to create habitat and ensure the long-term survival of elk, knowing that hunting aids in that, but the goal isn't to preserve hunting per se.
Yeah,
on public.
Right, on public lands. And RMEF does a lot. I mean, they do a ton of public land stuff, especially like here in Oregon. They've converted a good many of private ranches. That what they do is they'll purchase a ranch or conservation easements. They'll purchase a ranch or whatever.
Right.
And then they'll end up transferring the ownership of that over to federal. It'll be BLM or U.S. Forest Service.
Yep.
And so they're pretty good about that. And
I know that
a lot of that focus is, it's either elk wintering grounds or, prime elk habitat. And I know for sure here in Oregon, because I've had firsthand experience that, the RMEF here in Oregon, when they fund something, it's broad species based. It's not just elk. If they're going to fund a project, some of the criteria is it's got to benefit more than elk.
Yeah.
But, in all, like, our primary mission is keeping public lands public, keeping them wild. Okay. And we don't focus on as much on any one species of animal, and so, I think that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, it is. And that's why I was just trying to kind of, I guess, explain why BHA, how it's a little bit different. There's a big push going on right now for the sale of, or the transfer of federal land to state run land, right? It's just a big thing going on, like you said earlier. Can you explain that real quick? We've talked about it before, but talk about it again.
And that's why we got on the Elliott, was because this is our opposition to that. If state ends up owning it, they can't afford to own it. We end up losing. If they can't afford to own it, outside of the Elliott, they're selling that. We're pushing to maintain hunting and fishing access on that, even if a private timberland buys that. Like, that, we're pushing pretty hard on that.
That's something that BHA is working on.
Right.
If it sells, the deal is, if it's going to sell, you've got to keep it open to whoever buys it. They got to buy it with that stipulation that, hey, it has to remain open for public access.
Yeah. I mean, we've come to the realization that it's going to sell. They've got to sell it. They can't afford to keep it at a loss of $1 million plus a year.
So what is the track record, okay, of what? First of all, I guess before we get into that, before I go down this other road, tell me why I don't want the state to own it.
why you don't want the state to own it.
Yeah.
So that in itself is
just
why.
because they're going to sell it?
Because they're going to sell it.
How do you know they're going to sell it?
Because they've said they're going to sell it.
What about all the other states that are pushing for ownership away from the federal? Are they going to sell it too?
And so if they don't sell it, the other option is like what the Elliott was designed for, was to utilize its resources. That happened to be timber. Other states like Wyoming have gas and oil. Nevada has mining. Montana has mining. So these other states, when they gain ownership of this federal land, they want the resources. They want to use these resources, which isn't always bad, but 9 times out of 10, that means that you and I lose access to that land. When they put up, wind farms, when they put up gas and oil, and when they mine, and all of these things that they do to utilize the resources to make money for the state, in the end, we lose access. And this gets back to the, what's more important,
Yep.
And that's why Theodore Roosevelt set all this land aside, was for us to treasure for generations to come.
And the way that I understand it is, when it's owned by the federal government, it's your land and my land. Like, I have a share of it. It's publicly owned.
Mm-hmm.
It's yours and mine. When they give it to the state, we no longer have ownership of it. We have just given up our right to the land. Is that fair?
It's the state land boards manage totally different. They're in
under different laws,
different regulations. Yeah.
And so, because that was my next question is, well, how come the feds aren't like moving in and mining it and doing all this stuff inside these different states on that land?
Which they do. It's just more loopholes. It's more difficult for them to do because there's more regulations.
Because they're under a different set of laws at the federal level. So they have to maintain, as I understand it, at the federal level, they have to maintain public access to the land. They have to do things like ensure the habitat is good, some things that the state isn't subject to once it becomes classified as state-owned.
Mm-hmm.
And by virtue of that, basically, though, the way that I understood it and the way I've heard it explained is that as long as it's federally owned public land, it's like I have a share in it. But when it's moved to the state, I give it up. It's over. Now the state can sell it. They can do all kinds of things with it why would I give it up? That's my thing. Why would I give up access to my public lands? Why would I hand it over to the state if they're going to take it from me? It's no longer I have a right to it. It's like my inheritance is gone. Why would I do that?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It makes no sense to me. And yet they're making a pretty persuasive argument. When I say they, I'm saying these politicians out there at the state level saying, look, this property, we can manage it better. They're telling you, Ty Stubblefield, they're telling me, Brian Call, hey, we'll take this land and we'll manage it better than the feds are doing right now, and you'll be better off.
Mm-hmm.
That's a freaking lie, dude.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lie. Because first of all, I don't see them having more money than the federal government does to manage it. I don't see how they have more resources to manage it than the feds do already. And again, once it becomes theirs, now the state can do things to it that the federal government doesn't. Now, I'm not just saying that either. I listened to a number of podcasts and done a bunch of reading on this, and what I'm seeing is case after case of examples of where of other previous cases where the land was owned in federal care, moved to the state, and now has either been sold or we can't get to it. Vast tracts, like all the state-owned land in Colorado, as I understand it, some of it you can't camp on overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Or right here in Oregon, you can't do it either. You can go on it for the day, but you better not spend the night there. Some things like that where there's some limited use of the land. And And I haven't seen any cases really, or very many, where it's wound up in the favor of the outdoors person, whether you're a hunter, a kayaker, mountain biker, fly fisher, I don't know, whether you're any of those guys. I haven't seen a case where they really benefited from the transfer from federal to state managed. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement. Absolutely. So, case in point, you talk about Colorado. BHA is actually working on legislature right now to open up those state lands for increased access. And I don't know the exact language. They're working on it right now. It's like in its infancy stages. But we're working in Colorado right now to try to overturn some of that stuff. Case in point, though, an example in Oregon, and I talk about Oregon, number one, live here, but like I said, I've got about 17 years experience in conservation, and I've worked on, lots of different issues here in Oregon. And one of the last things that I worked on that was state and BLM land ownership. There's a state park on the John Day, and the state was wanting to lease from BLM an extra 10,000 acres. And this state park is really remote. I'm not going to remember the name of the park. It's fairly new. But the state park is pretty remote. There's some hiking trails. There's some mountain biking trails. You could literally go back 6-8 miles on the John Day River in this park. And state wanted to lease another 10,000 acres up on the mesa above the river to be part of that state park. And state wanted support of the organization that I was working for, OHA. They wanted their support on this. And the very first question that I had for the state was, will we get to camp on that? Their answer was no. So I asked them blatantly, I said, so you were telling me right now that I can camp on this ground, it's BLM, it's public, I can do the same thing now, but if you take over this piece of property, I'll no longer be able to camp on that. Explain to me why I'd want to support that. Why would I want to lose that access when I could hike in there right now and I can hunt this park? It was totally open to hunting. It was waterfowl, mule deer, coyote, chucker, so tell me, why would I want to lose that access to camp in there? I could bivvy in there right now and everything's hunky-dory, but when you get access to it from the state, you're going to tell me no now. You're going to tell me, no, I can't take my tent in there.
And what a golden treasure that is for us as U.S. citizens to have land like that we can just backpack into, bivouac out on, hunt on, partake in, and then to have it just taken away just chaps me, man. Ticks me off. Mm-hmm. It just makes me mad. But yeah, you have all these politicians right now that are really pushing for this. And what's their angle? How are they, quote unquote, tricking Americans into giving up this birthright, this inheritance, this land that's theirs?
So this is my theory, is that, in Oregon's a good example, and natural resources, what we have to offer is logging. I mean, that's our heritage. It's what this state was, outside of trapping, logging is what this state was based on. And so the feds own 53% of the state. A vast majority of that is, BLM and desert region. But a good portion of that is timberlands. A good portion of that is prime timber growing country. And we don't log on federal land anymore, hardly ever. And the reason is not because the land managers, the feds, don't want to. It's because every time they do, they come up against litigation from environmental groups. If people really want to fix this, let's fix that. Let's make it so that every time some wacko environmental group wants to sue the federal government for managing the land like it should be managed, that they don't get paid to do that. Let's fix that, because that's free. And they actually make money on that. They have lawyers that volunteer because they know at the end of the day, when they win that lawsuit, they're going to get paid for it. Let's fix that, because that fundamentally is the problem. It's not the federal land managers. It's not BLM. It's not Forest Service, because I've seen time and again them put up logging sales to be shot down, to be tied up in litigation, and for them to never happen. And quite frankly, it irritates me, because trees are the most renewable resource on the face of the planet.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
The Elliott State Forest grows at a rate of over 18% a year.
It's an amazing renewable resource. There's no reason why you can't manage it effectively so that you have both prime habitat and wildlife places, and also pull that renewable resource out.
Mm-hmm. So, exponentially, that in itself is the problem. But this is how our state representatives, this is their argument that, they're not managing the lands properly. We'll just use logging. They're not logging.
They're not. They're saying the federal government is not using the lands properly. The federal government is not logging the lands like they're supposed to, or they could.
Correct.
If we get our hands on it, we can fix that.
Yeah. If we get our hands on it, we'll log it. We'll create jobs. We'll utilize the resource. And this extends into
Is that true? Because I thought you just told me that the Elliott State Forest can't be logged.
It isn't true. It isn't. That's the point we're trying to make. It's a lie. They say that they can do that, but they can't.
That's their angle is, hey, give it to us, give it to the state, and we'll do a better job.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a lie, because they can't and they don't. And so what happens is they sell it. Now, why would they want to sell it?
They sell it, or they'll lease it, or they'll lease it to, ranchers, energy development, gas and oil.
So if you're some rich cat, state legislator, and you can get your hands on a whole bunch of public land, just hand it over to you, and now you can sell it. What happens? You look good. You get all this money. You line your pockets. You buy a new
short-term fix. And at the end of the day, we've lost access, and like you said earlier, we lose hunter recruitment.
So how have these groups that are pushing for the sale of federal to state, or not the sale, but the transfer of management from federal lands to state, the people that are pushing for that, how have they gone up against BHA? Because you guys have now got the word out. You're preaching from the pulpit. Randy Newberg is. I heard Land Tawny, or is it Tawny Land? I heard Land, right?
Land
Tawny. He's the founder. Is that right, of BHA?
No, he's the president and CEO right now.
Yeah, I'm so plugged in, dude. I'm so dialed. Okay, so as the president. I heard him on the Meat Eater podcast.
Steve Reinella, him and Steve,
which is another excellent resource to go and listen to that podcast and get that perspective. He knows a lot more about it than I do. So, but what was cool though is they got into this subject, and I'd like you to kind of tell the Gritty Bowmen listeners, those who didn't catch that on Reinella's, what is it that they've done, because now BHA is out there and they're promoting the message, like getting the word out, saying, hey, you're going to lose access to your public lands if you allow them to be transferred into state ownership. And you're kind of exposing this lie for what it is to the public. It sounds like, and I've even heard people say this who I've said, hey, you should look into BHA and join them, that there has been a slandering campaign almost, if you will, against BHA. Tell me about that whole thing.
Oh, good. I was hoping you'd ask. So kind of to highlight what you're saying, BHA in the short 12 years of its existence has become a force to be reckoned with. We've become a powerhouse in the conservation world, and we're recognized in Washington, D.C. as somebody, as a conservation group, sportsman's group. And we're a threat. And we're a threat to these energy development companies, gas and oil. We're a threat to their ability to be able to, get these leases, because that's what this is about. If we can transfer ownership or management from federal to state is a lot easier to manipulate for this energy development. And they stand a lot more to gain because, obviously there's money in that. So it's a lot easier to manipulate one or two legislators in one state than it is, on the national level. So we've been targeted by some folks that are funded by these energy development companies to discredit BHA. They're calling us green groups, we're an environmental group. Some of the funding that we get comes from foundations. A brief little explanation on the difference between a foundation and an environmental group. An environmental group is not a funding source. A foundation is a funding source. And without going into too much detail, we get a good portion of our funding comes from foundations, and foundations that are concerned about public lands, whether it be public lands protection, whether it be public lands access for hunters and anglers. The bottom line is that's our job, that's what we do, and we've become a threat. And so these energy development companies have gotten together and says, hey, we need to point out, some things, just get dirty. Basically what it is fighting dirty, because we are a threat. Because we have an impact.
Yep.
And we can affect what they're trying to accomplish.
Well, what's interesting is that everyone I know that's in BHA is a real hunter, like a real day-to-day guy that goes out and hunts. Like, I've known you for years. I've seen you hunting, since born and raised. You guys you're just the true backdoor, like guys in my backyard that just are passionate about hunting and conservation. And so for them to call you like some kind of PETA green environmentalist group, it's kind of funny because there's not a single person I really know that's involved in BHA that isn't a dyed-in-the-wool hardcore hunter. I mean, backcountry enthusiast. And so it's what is that negative connotation associated with being called a green group? What does that mean? How is that angle preventing, or how does that angle work for them?
So what they've done is they're using party lines to point out the green group connotation. They're using party lines that a lot of times will side with a Democrat, or sometimes it's a Republican, but at the end of the day, we're neither.
Yeah,
we're neither. If a Democrat comes out with a good bill and is in support of preserving habitat and preserving public lands, that's whose side we're on. If it's a Republican, then that's those are our friends. It doesn't matter to us whether Republican or Democrat.
Yep.
At the end of the day, if they support public lands, they support conservation, they support the protection of our backcountry, they're our friend. And that's what this outfit's trying to do is say that we've supported Democrats in the past on certain things, on certain bills or certain issues, and
therefore you're anti-hunting.
Right, yeah. If we're Democrat, then we're liberal and we're a green group,
anti-gun or something like that. Because what I'm hearing from a lot of those groups is, don't join BHA. They're not really for the sportsmen. They say they are, but that's a lie. BHA is really there to take away your hunting rights.
Yeah. So what I say to that is, prove it. show me one instance where we've been anti-gun, anti-hunting, anti-fishing, anti-sportsmen.
It's pretty ridiculous.
It's never happened.
Yeah.
Ever. It is completely ridiculous. And
it's funny because when you go to,
it's almost funny. It is almost. I mean, it is so ridiculous that you want to laugh at it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but at the same time, it's like he's creating so much work right now for me to have to explain this 500 times. You know.
But if hunters don't, but see, Ty, it's very easy to send a message quickly in 2 or 3 lines and simplify or boil something down to they're a green group, don't buy them, they're anti-hunting, and then throw a few lines out that are not true. It's a lot harder to explain from A to Z what BHA is involved in, why it matters, why the sale or the transfer of ownership from federal to state is a bad idea, how state has had a track record of selling your lands and then you losing all your access, that public land is yours, you have a right to it when it's federally owned, and when it moves to state, you lose that right. Those things are not what they're telling people, these organizations, these groups. They're not telling you that. They're telling you that they're just telling you that you want this because we're here for you, the sportsman. We're here for you because we're gonna give your economy a boost. We're here for you because, and it's not true. It's really to sell the lands right out from under you.
Mm-hmm.
So
precisely,
I think that BHA. I'm really excited that BHA is involved and that the organization is there and that they're fighting for this. My concern is I want to see it grow. I really want to see, because when I think about this, and you made this point the other night, you were saying that when we go to our state representatives and we say, look, we have X thousand, 50,000 members, that are how do you say it, that have all banded together, that are all joined in this state to fight such and such, or 200,000 or whatever that number is. That gives you real power. It consolidates the voice of the sportsman. If we're all like one voice here, one voice here, one voice there, we don't have the power that we have when we come together in one group with one central message. So I'd like to see that happen. I'd like to see more people come together. So you mentioned the other night, with like the way that we can help with this is to join BHA and participate. What else is there?
That's an awesome start. I mean, well, I mean, it's just facts. I mean, you've got to be part of something. You got to stand for something. And if it isn't public lands, then what is it? If it isn't that access, if it isn't that wild backcountry, you got to be part of it, and you got to, and in being part of this, you get educated. All these issues that we talk about, they're so complex. There's so much more than meets the eye. It's not just cut and dry, and every one of them is different.
So let me ask you, because we talked about this a little bit the other night, and you were saying you have I don't know, like, let's just throw out a number, like for every Facebook follow you've got like a 0.5% membership or something. I don't know what these numbers are, but you have a lot of people who are like, yeah, we're in, but aren't actually signed up as members.
Yeah. So we got like well over 80,000 Facebook followers, and the way I see it, these are folks that believe in what we do. They follow what we're working on. A lot of everything that we do is put out on social media, and these are folks that they get behind what we're doing, but I don't think they realize that we're a membership group, and we need your help. It's $25. That's less than 2 cases of beer. I mean, it's damn near less than a pair of socks. I mean, so it's $25, and you get our quarterly magazine, but most of all, you get behind us and you support what we're doing, and what we're doing benefits everybody, whether you're a member or not. What we do benefits everybody.
And at $25, how do people, how do they sign up, and And how do they? Can you just sign up and have that auto deducted? Do you guys mail, or do you pay all at once for the year? I mean, what's the deal?
Yeah, you can get on our website and hit the join button. It's self-explanatory on there. You can sign up for 1 year. You can sign up for 3 years. You can become a life member. There's family memberships. You can pay online, which is the recommended method of joining right now. Right now, we have a campaign going for the month of December where for $15 you can sign up, become a member, and be entered to win $1,000 in Sitka Gear. So that's kind of this month's sweet deal. Yeah, $15 though. I mean, that's $10 off.
Yeah.
So I encourage anybody that's not a member, for $15 introductory offer, try it. Join. $15. You're not out much. If you don't like it, then you don't have to re-up. But I think when you realize and see a lot of what we're working on, you'll renew. You'll get behind it.
Yeah, the magazine's great, and it just helps us. It helps fund all the activities that you're involved in. But more than that, even once you have a membership and you're plugged in, and mine's 35, and I have my wife and my whole family there and dialed in, and there's the opportunity to get together with others in that community. Also get that central message of what you guys are working on, what like you said, like education. You're dialed into what's going on in the local and the national community, and what we need to do in terms of voting and taking action on behalf of public lands, the preservation of public access to public lands. So I mean, it's one of those things where can't stress it enough, I guess, that if you're not a member, just go and look into this. It's just man, I would love to see thousands and thousands, in this state of Oregon signed up and participating. I would love for you to be able to go to those that are in power and that are making the decisions on our lands and say, look, we have this powerful force behind us that are all for this. You look at the NRA, and I heard Randy Newberg talk about this on his last podcast, where he's like, I wish they would step up. They do amazing things, and he's proud of what the NRA does for preserving our access to firearms. But a group like that has a lot of power, and when they say, look, I don't like how we're handling this public land thing, that can go a long way. Now, they haven't really done that yet, or not at the scale that BHA is working on it. But in the absence of that, and especially because it's such an important part of the future of hunting, I really look forward to seeing what BHA is able to accomplish.
Yeah. Here's the brutally honest truth.
Give it to me. Give it to me.
That is that both barrels. Because my own hunting partners are guilty of this, and I will call them out by name. We're complacent. All the born and raised guys, not all of them. There's a couple of guys that are, that are joiners, but out of 5 or 6 of us, there's 3 of us that are members of organizations. And as hunters, we're complacent. We're not joiners. We want to do our thing. We want to be left alone. And as long as we stick our head in the sand, the world's going to be fine. But the fact of the matter is you need to step up. You need to contribute. You need to give back, because it's not going to be there for your children, and it's not going to be there for your grandchildren if you continue to put your head in the sand and pretend like nothing's wrong, nothing's going to happen, nobody's going to take anything away from you.
There's people out there. There's people out there every day that want to take away from. There's just bad people and greedy people.
There's many people that it's their life mission to take it away from us.
And if you don't fight for what you want, if you don't fight for what is right, who is going to? It's going to disappear. The things that you want. And I agree that
that's a promise. That is a promise.
We as hunters tend to not participate in a lot of the political realm. We don't want to have to deal with this crap. We got real business, real things to do, and I think, yeah, it's kind of in our makeup. That's why we're hunters. But we got to change.
We like solitude. We like being by ourselves. We like being left alone.
But if we don't fight the fight, once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
And no, I agree. I see it, and it's kind of scary, I think. I think it's kind of scary because we have been complacent for so long. And if it weren't for sportsmen 50, 60, 100 years ago, we wouldn't have the treasures we have right now.
Nope.
You know?
Absolutely.
And I feel like our generation, you know, this time now, we're kind of, you know, we're kind of just ignoring a lot of these red flags and these big issues that are out there. And the thing is, it's not that hard, dude. Go out and support some of these conservation groups and actively participate. I'll tell you what, spending $25 doesn't appeal to me. I'm a tightwad, but doing something like this that I believe in an organization that I believe in makes it worth it. The other thing is, think beyond the dollars that you're spending. In my mind, I'm thinking, I do like to see other hunters. I do like to see who's in my local community that cares about these issues like I care about them. And I do want to get to know them. And one thing that was cool about that meeting we went to, and I look forward to more, is there was a lot of guys with different backgrounds, different experiences, you know, some being guides, some of them being, you know, good at this, or some owning an archery shop, or, you know what I mean? Like, and you get to meet those people, and you get to then pull on them as resources, and they can pull on you, and you get to become a supportive community where I wouldn't have those connections if I didn't have BHA. And so I think it's more than that. It's a community that can grow. And that's why I think those bring your buddy to happy hour kind of events are going to be important. They're going to be a chance to build community. And that's what I'd like to see more of, rather than just money invested into BHA. I'd like to see community develop in BHA.
Yep. Takes that first step, getting involved, show up.
So showing up to the events, and I know you guys have more planned. You posted it on Facebook is what you did. But what about those people who are not on Facebook?
Post on Facebook.
You sent out an email. Dude, you sent it out the day before. You big slacker.
No.
No?
I sent one out like a month before.
Oh. Okay, then I'm guilty. I didn't see it, but
the difference was it had like 4 events on there. Like, it had all the events I was putting on, and then like a day or two before, I sent out a single one, kind of singling out regionally.
Well, I would like to see. I do like the email. That connects with me a lot more. Facebook anymore is so noisy. I get so much stuff. I miss stuff all the time. Some I catch, some I don't.
Yeah, it's tough. Facebook is tough.
So. I do like email. So if you sign up and you're a member, we'll get an email saying, hey, we're going to do an event down here. Come on.
Yep. And I can single out like regionally who those go to. And so, yeah.
Good.
For show.
And so will you be hosting a lot of those?
I'm going to be a traveling man. This is my goal, is to get a few guys like you're in Oregon City. So, like, my goal is to maybe get 2 different groups there going in the Portland metropolitan area, and, you know, maybe have one on the east side of town and one on the west side of town, and get some guys helping me with those, and maybe doing it monthly, like every month, having a happy hour. Yeah. And just talking about the issues, updating folks on where we're at, just drinking beer and eating good food, and there was a lot of storytelling there. That was awesome. I like seeing that. It was cool.
Yeah, one thing that I think that it was cool. It was neat to see. I'd just like to see it grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Ty, I know you're packing. I saw looks like you're loading up the truck and you're going to be gone here soon. But it's cool. You're going to be traveling, so you're going to be back in this area for some of these events all the way from Montana? Say yes.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I'll be back. You know, we got a couple of things coming up. I'm going to be at the Full Draw Film Tour in Albany.
Okay.
There's one on the 10th and one on the 11th. I'm not sure which one I'm going to yet, if I'm going Thursday or Friday. But December 10th and December 11th, Full Draw Film Tour in Albany, Oregon.
I'm going to be there on Friday.
Okay.
That's the one you should go to.
Maybe I should go Friday then. We can hug or wrestle. I haven't wrestled you yet. So.
Yeah, you're a little... I don't want to be that close to you, man. I mean, no offense,
but you want a big old bear hug from me. I know you do.
I saw you and Anthony wrestle. I don't want any part of that.
He cheated.
He's a big dude, man. He is solid as a rock.
He's a
mountain.
Yeah.
He's only 5'10", but the width on the man.
It's as big as a barrel.
Yeah.
Like a 50-gallon drum.
So tell me.
So we have BHA's actually hosting a couple of Full Draw events. One's in Reno, Nevada on December 11th.
Okay.
So that'll be Friday in Reno. It's at the Psychedelic Ballroom and Juke Joint. You can get tickets on the Full Draw Film Tour website. And you can get tickets at the door. We're also hosting one in Park City, Utah, December 19th at the Prospector Theater. So you can get on Full Draw Film Tour and buy tickets for those, or you can show up at the door. Those two, the Reno and Park City show, BHA is hosting those, and all proceeds go to BHA and work specifically in those states, so Utah and Nevada.
Are you going to give away some stuff?
Oh yeah, there'll be a ton of raffle prizes and
kids
stuff. Yeah,
kid stuff.
Yeah, always.
Cool. So same old sort of the what we've experienced in the past. You can expect with these BHA hosted ones.
Correct. Yes.
So this Friday you're going to be there representing BHA.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. In
Albany. Okay. Oregon. And so anybody who goes to the tour can sign up to be a member there on site?
Yeah, when I'll be there. And then in the Reno and Utah shows, yeah, you can sign up there as well.
But you can always do it on the website and it'll walk you right through it.
Backcountryhunters.org.
Okay. Let's say you've been a member for a while. Does it just auto-renew, or do you have to go back on and re-up, or how does that work? You get a notification, or?
You'll get a couple of notifications for renewal that start 2 months out before your expiration date. You get 1 2 months out, 1 month out, and then if you've really flaked out, then you'll get one like a month after.
Okay.
And then we can't help you after that.
Find your way back to the website.
Exactly.
All right, dude. Well, that's awesome. Any more events coming up? Any more Bring a Hunting Buddy events coming up?
We're going to have one, like I was saying earlier, we're going to have one in Bend, Oregon. And then probably after the first of the year, I'll get back on that wagon. I need to get moved, and then Christmas is coming. And so we'll probably won't do many more in December. But starting in January, we'll get back on that wagon, and we're going to have them all over the nation. We've got chapters in Minnesota and New York and all the New England states and Alaska, and Arizona, and British Columbia. So,
excellent.
We're going to be all over the map starting in January. So, good. Yeah.
All right.
We'll talk about that. We'll get back on a schedule.
Yeah, you and I, we decided at least once a month. At least once a month. I'll track you down, and we'll get some of the latest details and some, of course, always some hunting adventures from the infamous Ty Stubblefield and backcountry hunting tips and advice. Although, I don't really want to know any advice from you. Like that. No, I think I've heard some stories.
How to kill blacktails?
I do, actually. I do want to. I already.
You shot a nice blacktail this year, so you're up. You're doing good.
But mine was not as big as yours. I think yours is bigger.
That happens a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I've shot bigger ones before, just this year.
No, that was my biggest. So
yeah.
I've shot spikes. It's on video.
Nice. Well, dude, thanks, and stay gritty, and we'll get back on this later. I'll see you Friday.
Awesome.
All right, man. Have a good
Sounds
night.
great. Thanks, Brian.
See you later.
Cheers.
All right, friends. Thanks for listening and supporting the podcast. Don't forget about our deal with Mountain Ops. Type in the word gritty at checkout and get 20% off until the end of the year. For those of you who have not seen the Full Draw Film Tour this year and want to go, check out their website for their tour schedule. And if you haven't done so, go and subscribe to our YouTube channel or to the Gritty Bowmen TV podcast on iTunes or Podbean so you can see all the latest video content we have produced. And be sure to have a look at the new Elk 101 website where you can find our podcast and other great elk hunting content. Thank you for taking the time to leave us your feedback. We really appreciate your sincere support of our show. Finally, let me leave you with this quote by President Theodore Roosevelt, who in 1905 said, "In a civilized and cultivated country, wild animals only continue to exist at all when preserved by sportsmen. The excellent people who protest against all hunting and consider sportsmen as enemies of wildlife are ignorant of the fact that in reality, the genuine sportsman is by all odds the most important factor in keeping the larger and more valuable wild creatures from total extermination." Friends, always take the time to educate those around you about your role as a hunter in preserving the wild creatures of this world. If you don't, who will? As always, good luck on your hunts and stay gritty.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowmen.
Gritty Bowmen.